Picture this. You see one of your favorite YouTubers check out a trading card game, and you determine that it seems fun. You start researching the rules and how to become a competitive player. You then understand what all this craze is about, and you say, alright, let's try this. You head on down to TCG Player and find all the cards you need for a competitive strategy. You add them to the cart, thinking it's time to have some fun, until... This is the exact opposite of a good feeling. You're spending hundreds if not thousands to play a game like this. You decide to take a rain check and play Connect 4. The point being made with this story is that if you decide to get into a trading card game, not only are the rules going to be complex, but the cost versus benefit analysis will dramatically skyrocket into question if these expensive trading cards are even worth it. First, it's important to understand that traditionally trading cards, contrary to popular belief, won't share both qualities of being competitively and financially potent. Instead, this will break off into two categories, being the competitive and collector's markets. The competitive market will consist of cards currently being used at the most competitive levels of gameplay, whereas the collector's market has a very different story, which we'll need to discuss in a little bit. It's important to make this distinction as this correlates to a very important concept in not only the trading card game industry, but business as a whole, and that's a barrier to entry. According to Investopedia, a barrier to entry is when, quote, there are factors that prevent or impede newcomers into a market or industry sector, and so limit competition. To give an example, if you wanted to play Call of Duty, you'd have to spend $60 on it, creating a barrier to entry that many will not want or be able to get past. Instead, they could just play a game like Fortnite that is completely free, in turn removing this financial barrier altogether. This is the reason we're starting to see more and more games arrive to a free-to-play mentality, and furthermore, that's why you want things to be affordable. With this concept in mind, we can now tie it together with trading card games, and that's where it gets complicated. Most games have something known as reprint, which will immediately degrade the value of a card due to a new variant being able to be used for tournament play. If you couldn't tell already, this will also decrease the barrier to entry for new players, making a more affordable card game overall. Now, reprints don't typically occur in the immediate, and in fact it will usually take quite a while for a popular card to go through this process. That is due to the correlation between the set a card will come from and how long the printing cycle is for that set. If, for example, a printing cycle is about 6 to 8 months for a new core set, it could take 8 to 12 months for the card to be reprinted. Now, when it comes to reprints, they are absolutely crucial to bring new faces into the game. Additionally, you can probably tell that this means when looking at a card through a competitive lens, they traditionally won't maintain their value and will plummet over time. But reprints have a very weird separate quality to them. Depending on how you look at it, reprints arguably can make specific rarities more expensive, and that can bolster the other market of this conversation, the collector's market. The collector's market is not tied to the competitive metagame for the most part, but instead will look at separate qualities like the essential business factors of cost and demand, or card game specific factors like time, visual aesthetics, or non-visual correlations to determine its price. These three qualities are each important to discuss individually. Starting with the non-visual correlations, this can be related to a variety of factors. If it's a quote-unquote prize card, a card that you win by competing in a tournament, that can increase the demand. If there is a specific variant of a card, for example, a card has a shadowless border, which signifies what wave the set is from, that can increase the cost and demand as well. Arguably, the most important factor in the collector's market as a whole, however, is 100% the amount of time a card has existed. This is important for not only looking at how long ago something was released, but seeing into the future where a card may end up. If I were to buy a $200,000 Pokemon card, that is arguably a very shockingly safe investment due to how the card will stay stagnant in price in the immediate and will continue to rise in price in the future due to more time elapsing, making the card rarer and rarer by the day. So now that we understand the two lenses to view expensive trading cards through, let's now break down if this is actually worth the purchase. Because these purchases realistically depend on your goals, whether it's to make a profit or play competitively, I feel we should establish a pros and cons for each. With competitive cards, one pro is that you can use and play them competitively. In general, a card game is traditionally going to be played, and that's where the competitive market is so fundamental to appease. A secondary pro is that you can buy competitive cards depending on the card game that can be used for competitive play, but have a specific quality that either makes them very hard to get or unique, and that quality won't go away with future reprints. To give an example, in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game, we've recently had the introduction of Starlight Rares, a very hard to get rarity that has no fear of getting reprinted anytime soon, and thus this makes the Starlight Rare market an actual okay investment. The cons can include that most of the time you're not buying a card for years to come, and instead, the card would only hold its value for maybe a year or two at best. Another con is that the price of a card can swing depending on the competitive metagame, and if you're spending $30 or even $100 on a single piece of cardboard, that could be a scary purchase to make. Moving over to the collector's market, a pro includes that you're buying for the long term. If you make that decision to buy an expensive collector card, generally speaking, you'll most likely get rewarded, as these are pretty safe investments for the reasons I've described earlier. The second pro is that you may get enjoyment out of these a lot of the time intense purchases. It's also like stocks in a sense. Getting the thrill and dopamine rush of seeing how the purchase is doing can be exciting a lot of the time. One con, however, is that these sometimes can be extremely expensive investments, potentially more than even thousands of dollars. That's quite an intense amount of money to be spending, and it's important to recognize if you are even comfortable with a purchase like that. Right now we're in a card game boom. With quarantine occurring, many celebrities even have decided to invest in trading cards as a safe investment for the foreseeable future. But generally, most people are not celebrities and have thousands of dollars to spend like that, so it can be incredibly nerve-wracking to make a purchase like this. Arguably, the more important con, however, is the second and final one. You don't get to play with these cards. Traditionally, these are relics of the past you're purchasing, and you won't be able to play with them. Sure, there's nostalgia involved, but in general, is that even fun? The point of a trading card game is to battle your friends and see who can become the king of games, Pokemon Master, or any other line you can think of. Is it actually fun though, to not even play the game we love so much? Oh god, yes, we are always trying to make those fat stack. If you're asking me, expensive cards are 100% worth it. Depending on your criteria and how much money you have, and whether you value these pros or cons highly enough in order to purchase expensive trading cards. Subscribe and turn on notifications for more content like this, and if this video gets over 1,000 likes, I'll be sure to make more content of this style.